Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we are specifically going to talk about the Dungeon Master bullet point problem, parentheses, writer. All right. Now, I have an apology for you. If you do not know what the Dungeon Master bullet point problem is, you got some homework. I'm so sorry. I hate to do this, but I don't want to repeat myself in every video. It's not fun for you. It's not fun for me. In the doobly-doo below, you will see the original Dungeon Master bullet point problem video that gives you context for this video. You got to go watch that one, then you can watch this one. Thank you. All right, let's talk about the Dungeon Master bullet point problem writer. All right, so you have to master writing to be a good Dungeon Master, and this is distinct from storytelling. Writing and storytelling from a Dungeon Master's perspective are two powerful, distinct, different disciplines that have to be mastered to be a dungeon master, right? To do the job well, right? To do the job, great, and to be really good at it, right? Now, how is storytelling different than writing? Okay, so storytelling is in the moment, and boy, there are some dungeon masters who are pure crap at this. They are just so bad at it, right? So they are like here's a bad dungeon master. Somebody is like, they're like, hey, you roll into a tavern, and they're like, what's the tavern's name? And you're like, I don't know. And then they're like, well, seriously, I'm taking notes. Can you, dungeon master, can you tell me the name of the inn? And they go, the Silver Fart, right? And they don't the DMG has a table, right? And so if you are a good dungeon master, you consult the DMG table, and you're like, oh, it's the Silver Harlequin, right? And you keep and bad dungeon masters are like, let me make a joke of the game now, right? I don't understand the importance of names. I don't value your time. I'm wasting your time. I'm wasting all these players' times. But you know what? And this really bad dungeon mastering is so bad because it's like, a lot of times people are like, you don't have something better to do with your time. And I'll tell you right now, that might have been true in the 70s and 80s. It sure as heck ain't true now. There's amazing movies, amazing shows, amazing books, amazing video games just waiting to steal your players and keep them home next week, right? So names are important, right? Like, they are crazy important, right? But even the storytelling is when you go into that tavern, right? You're going to say, oh, there's in the tavern, there's a dragonborn who is juggling, right? What is he juggling? Is he an adventurer, or is he a servant? Is he a serving person there in the tavern, right? Or is he just a farmer? All that is storytelling. You have to make it up on the spot, right? And dungeon mastering will demand this of you, like on the spot. Create the story right then. That's storytelling, because you're not going to write it, right? You're going to pull it out of your brain, right, and put it down, and it needs to be good, right? Whatever crap just rolls off the top of your head, it doesn't work, right? You need to have a robust, adaptable, flexible mind, right? This is why I keep saying, don't stop thinking, right? Like, dungeon mastering pulls this stuff out of us. It draws us to do more. Now, what is writing, right? Boy, oh boy. If you think that you don't need to be a great writer to be a dungeon master, you ain't paying attention. And I'll tell you, you cannot stop thinking in this world. This world is a layer cake of complexity, and it just gets more complex every day. So maybe 10, 20 years ago, you might have got away with being a good dungeon master without being a good writer, but the world has changed, okay? So if you think that you can get away with being a good dungeon master without being a good writer, go check out Describe, okay? I am not doing an advertisement for Describe. I'm warning you about Describe, right? So Describe, DSCRYB, okay? It's a new site online, and I went and I signed up for the free service on Describe, right? And I immediately swept about 30 or 40 descriptions. Like, there's a description for a goat on Describe, right? And so when your players come across a goat, you read the description of the goat. And it is crafted like Shakespeare himself wrote it. It is incredible box text, right? And you as a dungeon master do not need to read box text for every, character that comes up or every location that comes up. But you should be reading it for some things, right? One of the ways you can use box text, and either you go to Describe and you get amazing material, which is going to help you for like 10% of your locations, your non-player characters, your sword, your magic items, things like that. But when there's something really important in your game, you want to write these powerful little box texts, right? And read it, right? And so the stuff on Describe is absolutely amazing. Like their description of a plateau, their description of a boat, it is shockingly good prose, shockingly good, right? And you need to put in some of the Describe stuff, but then you also need to write it yourself for when you really want to tell the players, this is important, right? Don't ignore this. This non-player character isn't just some scrub, right? It's a meta way of saying to them, this is important, right? Now, the other thing is, it's just like canon, right? Like Marvel taught us this new thing with What If. If you have good canon, you can get value out of your canon, and you can get value out of subverting your canon, right? So you can also set it up that that's somebody who's completely not important, and then you read box text for them, and everybody at the table is like, "Ooh, this is important," and then and then you trick them, and you don't want to do that too bad. You don't want to trick your players more than like 1 out of 30 times, but you could trick them every now and then. You're like, yeah, you thought you were going, it's a red herring. You could use it. You just don't want to overuse it, right? So, and the other thing is, writing is important, right? The other thing that is important too is when the game is done, you want to go back and you want to capture in text everything that happened. And great writers do recaps for their stories. Recaps are incredibly powerful today, okay? Nobody wants to watch your 4-hour game, right? What they want is a recap. A lot of people are interested enough in your game to read a recap. Now, why would you do and recaps are really important today because you can write a recap, right? And you could say, hey, and when you do a recap as a dungeon master, you're saying to your player characters, thank you for every minute. This story is not going to be forgotten. And today, because of the new shape of our world, right, you can take your recap and you can print it out and give it to your players, but you could take that same recap and put it on the internet, right? And that's powerful because if you're running a good game, you'll put that out on the internet and people will come along in the comments and they'll go, that's a great idea. I'm going to use some of your ideas in my next campaign. You rock as a dungeon master. Or they're going to say, that is a crap story. You are not good at dungeon mastering. And you can't ignore that, right? If it's 1 person out of 20 that's saying you're a crap dungeon master, ignore it. If it's 18 out of 20, you got work to do, right? Like, so that's the issue is it's really, unless you're doing something really innovative and people just don't understand where you're at, right? But sometimes you're just crappy at what you do, right? Like there is times where even when the majority of people are saying it's one way, you got to stick to your guns. It's another way. But you got to be like a Leonardo da Vinci to be on that side. And you know whether you're a Leonardo da Vinci or not, right? Like, yeah. All right. So that's the issue is writing is very, very important. You need to be really on point and afterwards capturing your game. The other thing is, if you do good recaps on your stories, those live forever, right? And especially on the internet now. And it's really important that other people can learn from your mistakes or your successes or both, right? And you are also projecting to your players that and now, let's talk about writing. Writing is a massively complex craft. I have written 2 books, right? And the reality is, I really wanted to be I wanted to be a writer. That's what I wanted to do as my career, right? And the reason why I'm not doing that now is I figured out that I am a good writer, and I'm good at finishing stories, and I am absolutely terrible at marketing, right? And in today's world, that's not a good mix. You just, it doesn't work that way. And I got a family to feed, right? So I, quit my dream to be a professional novelist. I gave it like 2-3 years before I quit, right? And I'm like, I got mouths to feed. Well, I better go do something that actually pays, right? And today, for the vast majority of people, writing doesn't pay, right? but it is incredibly difficult. And I have written 2 novels. I'm very proud of them. I think they're good. I don't think they're great, right? And I think that, I just realized I'm never going to be, like, I'm very confident. And even I'm not like, the whole world needs to, like, I'm going to be a marketing engine, right? That takes even more confidence than I have, right? Like, it's tough, right? So, but the thing is, we call dungeon masters to master writing, and it is distinctly different than storytelling, right? And the writing craft is brutal. You have to learn, and let's get into it. Let's crack this can of worms open, right? One of the reasons why I keep saying, do not call people lightly to dungeon mastering. Think very carefully, because if you call most people to dungeon mastering, you are calling them to a massively painful failure. I think most people who try dungeon mastering fail at it. And they definitely, and I think everybody fails at it for 3 years. I don't even think you got your legs until, if you're going to be a sword master, nobody's like, you're a great sword master after 6 months. No, it takes, you're going to be a suck game master for like 3 years. And then, year 4, 5, 6, you might hit your stride. Maybe 7, 8, 9, you're going to actually be a dungeon master, in my opinion, right? So with this writing part, if you're going to be a good writer today, you got to go to college, period. The language is just too ornate, and and so this is one of the things is, I honestly believe if you're going to be a dungeon master, if you're going to be a dungeon master, not a dungeon gooder, not a dungeon okayer, you need a college degree. I got 2, right? Like, I got a master's degree and a bachelor's. And honestly, I think to have the language, to have to be a good writer, I don't think you get it done today without a college degree. I just don't see, and if you're like, oh, Scott, you're crazy, right? Think about SNL, and where are they getting their joke writers? You know where SNL gets its joke writers? Harvard and Yale. I'm not kidding, right? If you are going to crush writing today, you need a college degree. And so if you're going to be, if this one discipline, this one bullet point, right, is literally calling you to a college degree, right? And I really don't think you hit real dungeon mastering without this discipline mastered. And I don't think you master writing without a college degree. Now, I will say this. I think this is unfair. I don't want I think Dungeons & Dragons in its current structure, okay, dungeon mastering as it's currently structured demands a college degree. I really do. And it's not even it's not even a Dungeons and Dragons problem. I think the world today, a college degree is like a high school degree was even 5 years ago. Definitely 10 years ago, right? It is incredibly difficult in today's world to make a good nut without a college degree. It's very hard, right? And I think it's really hard for people to be good dungeon masters as the game structure today. That's why I want Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, which is not what's coming out in 2024, to be a 99-page book with 3 32-page adventures released every year to lower the literacy and allow dungeon mastering to level out to a place where people who do not have bachelor's degrees at the minimum can be good dungeon masters, because so that literacy will shrink in the necessity of the game. It's one of the things that we can do and we can attach to it. All that's my opinion. What do you think? Do you understand the difference between storytelling and writing? Do you make those disciplines distinct within your game? And how do you approach the writing task within your game? Also, do you agree with me that dungeon mastering really, in today, just 2021, if you're going to be a good dungeon master, you really need a college degree. And Dungeons & Dragons is calling every dungeon master, and frankly, I think every dungeon player as well, to a college degree. I think that's where we've arrived. I'm willing to hear you think I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful, wonderful millennium.